New tonight? Oh dear. You're paying big bucks for a big bronze sculpture.
It's the newest high-priced art project planned for the city, and that has ABC6 investigator Brooks DeRose on Waste Watch tonight. He joins us live from downtown. Brooks?
Well, we are at Genoa Park, where you'll soon have some company by the Scioto River. The word Scioto means hairy deer, after all. So you can come into the park, put down a seat, and then prop up your feet and enjoy some lounging time with two new friends, giant bronze deer, because after all, you're paying to get those deer right here.
It's a vision that rises high above the city skyscrapers, a plan for public art, popping up to put Columbus on the revitalization map. ABC6 investigators started tracking it all, hundreds of thousands of taxpayer dollars spent on artwork. We dug into a special project headed up by the Columbus Art Commission. A panel sought out more than 100 artists worldwide to submit their designs for downtown.
One of man's great desires is to create something that will outlive him, and I do that every day.
Artist Alan Cottrell feels slighted. Around every corner, bronze sculptures surround you at his studio in Zanesville.
I'm God when I do this.
But he wasn't even invited to submit an art plan.
Not even to get a phone call, and not even to be considered for the casting. Yeah, I feel neglected.
Instead, meeting minutes and approved project records we obtained showed will cost taxpayers $280,000. What is it? Two giant humanized bronze deer planned for the banks of the Scioto River in Genoa Park.
Well, the amount of money spent on art is a very small piece in comparison to the entire amount that one spends on revitalizing an area.
Remember Flowing Kiss? It was the original design winner for North Bank Park, costing you $250,000. A consultant was hired for $20,000 to oversee the project. But the city tells us the Scioto Lounge proposal was so well received, the committee decided to clear the way for that project too, taking another $280,000 from city taxpayers.
Well, the artist got a great deal, that's all I have to say. I'd like some projects like that.
The project contract and artist details are still being drawn up, like no horns. The kids might get impaled. Maybe the legs on this one should be crossed. Or no sex. Parents might be damaged psychologically.
We talked to the artist, who says he will cast and create his deer in Walla Walla, Washington, hundreds of miles away, and it's all costing you.
Government waste is what it is. I mean, shame on them. They could easily have gotten a couple of art professors at Ohio State to oversee it.
In fact, Cottrell already has two works at OSU. Look familiar?
And we kind of think he's a winner. Woody Hayes.
How about this guy?
America's Black Streak, Jesse Owen. The world's most superb runner, makes the others look as if they're walking.
Both sculptures just part of Cottrell's portfolio.
Nobody produces as much work as I do. As you can see, there's 500 bronze statues here. I have over 100 monumental scale statues around the country.
Project organizers didn't want to talk on camera, but say they're working on building a public art collection to draw visitors. But since an Ohio artist was not picked to put artwork in this park, Cottrell is up in arms.
They didn't need to spend that much money on something like this. They could have gotten 5 times the amount of art for half the price.
While the city did consider local, national, and international artists, some like Cottrell are taking aim on the process, the decision-making, and at the end of the day, how and where your money is being invested.
The Scioto Lounge proposal is expected to be all completed by next year, and more deer could be joining us out here. The city says it wants to stay competitive with other big city art projects. Reporting live downtown, I'm investigator Brooks DeRose, ABC6 News. You might call it secret security because you either can't see it or don't realize it's considered protection. And $2 million of your money is being spent to beef things up at the Ohio State House, but not in the way you might think.
Beyond the iron bars, below the state seal, and above the parking garage sits the Ohio State House, a place for the people, a place that's under watch.
you'll see a lot more of a presence from the Highway Patrol.
Securing this space means more of your money, not in the form of uniformed state troopers. 60 miles away in Zanesville, Ohio.
I like my job. I like working with wood, because I can't imagine doing anything else.
Woodworkers are cutting out a new form of security.
It's neat working on something that could protect someone's life in a tragedy situation.
You can see the shaping, sealing, and smoothing of these desks, but they hide a safety secret.
Nobody really knows it's bulletproof, you know, except us. That's kind of cool.
Behind these panels, an impassable shield, all 6 costing about $50,000. It's just part of a nearly $2 million plan to increase security at the State House, starting with the construction of a $378,000 wrought iron fence.
We have to abide by the National Historic Preservation Act, so we can't put anything modern in there.
It's considered security. Luke Stedke is with the Capitol Square Review and Advisory Board. He says these types of upgrades are well worth the cost.
I think we're spending exactly what the legislator wants us to spend.
While the legislature is spending money for security for a fence, they're now allowing guns inside that fence and below the State House in the parking garage. They're just not allowed in the building.
You have some of these decisions that leave you scratching your head.
Brian Rothenberg heads up think tank Progress Ohio. He's outraged that this law, this fence, and these 6 desks are the only things being put in place to protect us.
I don't know that the bulletproof desk makes that much of a difference, other than a few people can hide behind it.
It's a fine line that you have to walk because this is a public building.
The public can access the State House from 4 entrances. The rest are on lockdown. Troopers will be on guard behind these new bulletproof desks.
It's still an open door, it's just a more secure door.
When you walk up to the door, there's signs telling you no guns. Once inside, cameras capture every move. And after you pass the trooper station, where you go from there is up to you.
If you're really worried about security, it's not money that's going to keep that from happening. It's common sense, like we don't need guns in the parking garage and we don't need guns on the front lawn.
Leaving it up for debate whether or not you're safe and paying the proper price for protection.
We did some digging and found neighboring states like Pennsylvania and Indiana have metal detectors and X-ray machines at every entrance. And we found troopers at the Ohio State House will have metal detecting wands, but so far they aren't required to use them.
ABC6 investigators are on Waste Watch for crosswalks that go nowhere.
And some of them may have to be redone. Waste Watch investigator Brooks DeRose is asking why.
ABC6 investigators have received nearly a half-dozen calls about what tipsters say is a waste of money. When roads are being resurfaced or upgraded, wheelchair ramps are required under federal law. But we found places and crosswalk layouts that don't seem to make any sense, especially at a big expense.
It can be challenging to navigate small holes and cracks in sidewalk.
Jennifer Flynn deals with a constant struggle.
Little bumps that throw your balance off.
But imagine if there is no sidewalk, just this, a crosswalk to nowhere.
What help is this? Just a little slab, a place to stand.
Skip Stahl lives in this Columbus neighborhood, and when he saw what's being done on Smoky Row Road, he called our ABC6 Waste Watch tip line. We found federal law requires the city to put in these slabs whenever a road's being redone, even if there's no future plan for a sidewalk.
It's not the question of where I think they do use it.
No one would ride a wheelchair around here. It's too busy.
And we saw no one.
It's just not practical. It's an incomplete job.
That job is costing us roughly $2,500 a corner. That's $10,000 an intersection.
I think these are more of a waste than the ones we just came from. There is no way, if you're in a wheelchair, to get to any one of these without being out in the main part of the road.
A few blocks over, what looks like a wheelchair parking spot. We questioned the logic without crosswalk signs and markings and no practical way to even get there.
Again, this is about safety for all of our pedestrians.
I couldn't tell you how many times I was close to being hit just because I was in the street.
So we took Jennifer's concerns to Disability Rights Ohio. Executive Director Michael Kirkman was surprised by what we found.
They'd have to come out into the street.
Yeah, I've never seen anything like that.
Kirkman says these curb cuts don't make sense.
The design of the ramp itself is very questionable, and I'm not sure it would comply with the ADA standards, and we can go take a look at that.
That would mean more of your money spent to redo the ramps. Kirkman says some corners have already been fixed after a contractor screwed up. The city has already completed hundreds of new corners to make them more accessible, but some still go nowhere.
I would say it's a waste not to complete the job and add the sidewalks to it. It needs to be done.
This is the efficient time to do it. It's cheaper to do it now than to redo it later.
And it may also mean looking to legislation to efficiently and effectively keep people like Jennifer moving forward.
City officials tell ABC6 investigators it is now a requirement for any new roads to be built with ramps and sidewalks. Several intersections are now being evaluated to make sure they're up to code. I'm investigator Brooks DeRose, ABC6 News.
Well, they're a common sight in some Columbus neighborhoods. The city is blighted by hundreds of homes left vacant, abandoned, and trashed.
Tonight, investigator Brooks DeRose digs into who's ultimately accountable for cleanup on these properties. Brooks is here with a special ABC6 Waste Watch investigation. Brooks?
Well, you know, we all want clean communities, but when owners go AWOL, the cost of the cleanup falls back on you. And with more than 6,000 vacant homes in the city, you better believe we're paying big bucks.
Tall weeds and rising grass, broken and boarded up windows, homes left trashed and deserted. Just roll down this section of Mound Street in West Columbus.
Everybody that passes by sees all that, you know what I mean? And then here we are. Like we live right across the street from it.
This is the view Anthony Mossberg and his family sees every day. It's just a few hundred feet from a school zone, a block that's quickly becoming run down.
I'd like to see them fix it up and give a family a home or something.
This is 2066 Mound Street, overgrown and abandoned. Tired of seeing this eyesore, we took several tips and started digging. ABC6 investigators found numerous code violations and safety concerns.
All neighborhoods, you know, should have properties that don't violate code.
Dana Rose is the Columbus Code Enforcement Administrator. We showed him this neglected home. He wasn't surprised.
It's, again, you know, one of the 6,000 that evidently the owner has abandoned, walked away from, so we're going to have to cut that grass and clean it up.
I was kind of shocked, like somebody actually is over there doing something.
The cleanup happened that week. The charge is added to the owner's property taxes. But this property's owner, we learned, was more than 3 years and $6,000 behind on taxes. And as we dug deeper, we cross-referenced the owner's name and stumbled upon the company Realistic Investors, LLC. We decided to see what other homes that company owned. Next door, 2072 Mound Street, vacant, abandoned, and boarded up, with code violations and owing nearly $7,000 in taxes. Down the street, 2425 Mound, overgrown and deserted near a school zone with code violations, owing more than $6,000 in taxes. Around the corner, 2264 Whitehead Road, abandoned and run down. A car registered to that address left sitting with flat tires. And the next street over, 2047 Rhea Avenue. High grass, broken windows, and junk everywhere. The dilapidated house is sitting just feet from a school. All of the properties, according to the Franklin County Auditor, owned by Realistic Investors, LLC.
You need to take responsibility for your property, whether it's an owner or a bank or whatever, if a bank takes a property back.
Accountability becomes a tangled web. Owners have 1 week to fix code violations, or else the city says it will take other actions.
You know, ultimately, it falls back on the taxpayer.
Contracts to cut grass and remove weeds falls on you. Last year, the city spent $700,000 of your money.
So essentially $700,000 to clean up someone else's mess.
Correct.
According to the Secretary of State, Realistic Investors LLC dissolved in 2011. Since then, these properties have sat unattended. Code enforcement has been keeping them somewhat cleaned up.
We can locate a person, we can take them to court and try to force them to pay us the money back or take care of these properties.
We decided to take on that task and track down the LLC members.
This is it right here.
After visiting their last known address with no luck, we tried phone number.
We're sorry. You've reached a number that has been disconnected or is no longer in service.
After phone number.
I'm sorry, but the person you called has a voice mailbox that has not been set up yet. Goodbye.
Then a tip took us on a road trip, traveling 60 miles to Xenia, Ohio. To this home.
Hi.
Hi there. A woman who confirmed she was a relative of the couple we were looking for answered the door. Despite the couple's van in the driveway, she told us they weren't home. We questioned her about the properties and the family business.
As far as my knowledge goes,
sure,
the banks were supposed to take possession of those and they failed to do so.
We checked and the properties are still in limbo. The auditor confirmed to ABC6 Realistic Investors owns these places. Still, we're the ones paying.
There's a lot of needy families that could use houses and stuff, you know. I mean, even if they just fix them up enough and sell them, give somebody else a chance to, you know, be able to benefit and whatever from it.
As tax liens grow, the city works to take action, ultimately selling or tearing these places down. It's another set of challenges.
But the problem is we've got inventory now.
Leaving it up to you to foot the bill for someone else's trashy taste and irresponsibility. We dug into court records and found lawsuits and other legal battles between the city and property owners, but the biggest challenge is tracking them down. It really is easier said than done.
Well, Brooks, why can't the city just tear these eyesores down, just get rid of them?
Well, let me take you through the process again. Let's say you have a code violation, for instance. You fail to cut your grass. The city then puts a tax lien on your home, and then ultimately you don't pay. So what happens? Well, that goes in the land bank program, and then we acquire, as the city and taxpayers, all of these homes. Right. Then there's not enough money in the budget to be able to go and take care of the properties, so we have to just clean them up.
Yeah, and they're expensive to knock down. You think it's just easy to go in and raise them, but it costs a lot of money to do that. They set aside some money last year, I know, to take care of some certain properties, but it really doesn't go far enough. And we all see the vast number of them that are out there right now. So who's accountable ultimately, us?
Well, that is the big question, and the real answer is if they can track down the owner, they're going to be held accountable. Yeah. But if they can't, obviously court costs are another thing you have to consider. But if they can't, then we're responsible. And so it's really going to take some people who maybe want to do some extra work on the weekends to clean up their community, because ultimately property values are going down, and that's going to hurt us all.
Right. Might have to have a street-by-street attack on it, by the people who live there.
Sad.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Brooks.
Thanks.
ABC6 is on Waste Watch, tracking your tax dollars.
And tonight we're looking at a big bridge that's costing you big bucks. ABC6 investigator Brooks Giroux digs into details of what some are calling a bridge to nowhere. Brooks?
Well, one call to our ABC6 investigators, and we found a project that's been years in the making, a footbridge over a busy U.S. Route 33. But it's where this bridge is being built in Marysville that has us asking questions.
Walk this path and keep walking. To your right, this subdivision. To the left, U.S. Route 33.
There's no reason to have this bridge.
Stakes mark the spot. The place where a big bridge with a big price tag will be built.
This is an expensive project.
Right now it's estimated at about $1.6 million project. It's kind of the bridge to nowhere. I mean, it's just connecting to the woods.
David grew up in Marysville, and when he heard about plans for a walking bridge over the highway, he thought,
cha-ching, cha-ching, just a lot more taxes.
City Administrator Terry Emery says it's an effort to link the largest subdivision, Mill Valley, with the south side of Route 33 into the city. Since 2011, Marysville has been planning and requesting grant money to build the bridge.
We need this because our community is growing and is going to continue to grow.
But the only thing growing on one side of the highway are trees and the nearby high school.
Having a bridge that goes from a trail to essentially the high school, is that the answer?
It's another option. It's just a waste in general. I mean, you don't need it.
David says it doesn't make sense. He called our ABC6 Waste Watch tip line, then showed us the trail. It revealed a pathway underneath 33, just a quarter-mile away from where the construction is supposed to start.
We just don't need it. We already got a path here. Why put a bridge to go over? We already got one going underneath the road.
The city says that's part of the plan.
To have an eastern, a central, and a western link from Mill Valley into the city.
Through Emery's eyes, this is an investment, a way to improve accessibility uptown to the fairgrounds, park, and city.
Do you think that people will actively be using this?
Absolutely. I think it will be used a lot.
The project calls for a covering to mimic other bridges in Union County, 12 feet wide along with lights inside. A Ohio Department of Transportation grant will cover the biggest chunk of change at $1.3 million. The other $300,000 falls on city taxpayers.
In your mind, this would not be considered a bridge to nowhere?
Oh, absolutely not. We consider this a link and a bridge to the city of Marysville and all the things that the city of Marysville offers.
The city of Marysville says it's in talks with the housing developer, and right now the footbridge will only connect the existing path, but if property can be purchased, another path could be added to go to the main road in Mill Valley.
Any of the residents around there been able to weigh in on all these different accessibility options?
You know, Bob, I asked that very question, and one of the things they said is now that they're beyond that phase of planning, they can actually go and have some sort of a town meeting and weigh in and get some opinions from people.
They might hear a few about this particular bridge that already exists.
Absolutely.
There. Yeah.
Right, a little path underneath. That's the question. Do we need one a quarter-mile away that goes over the top?
Sure. Yeah.
So when's construction supposed to begin?
Well, it still has to go out to bid, and at this point, construction is set to start, if everything goes according to plan, next fall in 2014.
All right. Well,
a lot of questions, Brooks. Thanks for getting on the radar.
That's right.
Appreciate it.
Thank you,
No
Brooks.
problem.
There's no bull about it. You're being milked out of tens of thousands of dollars.
And that's got Waste Watch investigator Brooks Giroux following the money tonight. Brooks, what's it about?
Well, it's Bucks for Bulls that's actually a cash cow, but the most surprising part may be where it's being used.
It may look and smell like your average farm, but this one you're paying for. Because this one's at a prison.
I've been locked up for 5 years.
Just a few hundred feet from their cells, inmates like Charles Warren.
I had an aggravated robbery. That was my original charge.
Spend the morning at the London Dairy Farm, milking and cleaning.
Coming to prison.
He never thought he'd be caring for cows.
It's not a good thing, but you have to make the best out of your situation. So that's what I've done.
We may not be putting farmers on the street. We're teaching guys to work.
And while the inmates do the dirty work, there's a more scientific operation happening here. It's locked away and comes inside this cold canister.
We got several different bulls in each canister. So they get numbers and their names on top, and I got to find the right one.
Not the entire animal.
And pull it out and thaw it out.
But straws of bull semen. Believe it or not, $150,000 of your money was just approved to artificially inseminate hundreds of cows in the state prison system. Just this year, well over $15,000 has already been spent at this farm to keep these cows pregnant.
$150,000 is a big number. That is 2 years' worth divided amongst 5 dairies. And once you break that down, it's industry standard.
Staff members are trained on breeding to save some cash. Still, this process and each service costs about $23.
Spend $20 on a straw semen, you get a calf on the ground that's worth $150.
There's no guarantees, but farmers say by the second or third try,
and she is pregnant.
The other cows are milked daily. Last year, nearly 1.8 million gallons of milk were produced for prisons across Ohio. Inmates feed, care, and clean the stalls.
She's skittish.
Veterinarians like Dr. Troy Brick from The Ohio State University are paid to check out the cow's progress, but not all news is good news.
This is one of those, I'm going to say, rechecker.
Brick educates students, inmates, and staff here, and it's all hands-on.
What I do now I love. I get to teach and I get to practice. I've become quite the cowboy. Since I've been out here, I can say that.
It's been happening for decades at this farm, saving the state thousands for meat and milk to feed prisoners. It starts with $150,000 for those precious straws of semen.
It's a pretty common thing, really, across the nation.
Housed behind the razor wire, from the canister to the cow to calf conception. It's the circle of life.
After this, I don't want to see a cow.
Now, the inmates have to reach a certain security level before they can work on the farm, and many times it's not by choice. They're forced to do the work.
Sure, as will happen in prison.
Right,
but,
that's right.
You went out to actually, I think, probably to look and see if money was being wasted here and found out that this was making some money. How much?
Right. Well, we saw that the State Controlling Board approved that $150,000 for bull semen. We thought, what's going on here?
A lot of money, yeah.
And we found out that there are several $100,000 that are being saved because all of the meat, all of the milk, everything is being put right back into the prison system, and that's what the inmates eat, and that's what the inmates drink. So it's really a savings to all of us.
I wonder if the ones who are out there on the farm working it, if they maybe don't want to eat it or drink the milk.
Sure,
I just wonder, you know, if you're a part of the process.
Well, the interesting thing is that semen is actually, they use traits and genes and kind of manipulate that so you get the best quality cow, believe it or not.
Those cows look terrific.
They really look
They do.
Well cared for.
Wow.
And while the inmates probably don't enjoy doing the work, it gives them that work ethic, and they hope that they will then go out and make a difference in their life.
Absolutely, absolutely. So how many states do this?
You know, I know there are some neighboring states that actually have farms. I am not sure whether or not they do the artificial insemination, but as you heard there, it is kind of becoming a standard thing in that industry, in farming.
All right, well, thank you, Brooks.
You're welcome.
Brooks, interesting. Thank you. If you have a tip.
ABC 6 News at 11, we're on Waste Watch. Millions of tax dollars are pumped into the state Medicaid system every year.
And tonight in a Waste Watch investigation, Brooks Jarosz exposes how some of that money is being misspent. Brooks?
Well, it's a system set up to help, but for some it's more of a hurt because some patients are forced into care they don't need, and we pay the price.
Listen closely. It's the sound of healing.
I could be at home with this.
But these tubes and this wound vac make Dale Kennison feel trapped. He's not at home. Instead, he's been living away at this Ohio nursing home.
This machine's the only thing that's stopping me from being at home.
He recently had major surgery. He expected to spend 5 days recovering here. It's already been more than 5 months.
I have no reason to be here.
Kennison is 52. He can eat, bathe, and take care of himself, but he's forced to live here now. It's the only way Medicaid will cover the cost of this contraption.
Disability Rights Ohio has been fighting what its advocacy director calls an inflexible system.
There's many people who are under the age of 60 that shouldn't be in nursing facilities that are, and this gentleman is just one example of that.
It's called fee for service. Medicaid will pay a flat fee to the nursing home to care for Kennison, but it would not cover the cost of his wound vac if he were to go home. He would have to pay out of pocket.
I personally cannot afford that. You know,
It's just beyond what I could do.
Kennison's home has sat empty. He's still paying rent, and he's away from his best friend.
If he was here, he would have to pay $20 a day for a wound vac. But on average, Medicaid shells out more than $200 a day for Kennison's treatment at this nursing home.
It's thousands and thousands, millions of dollars probably that are being wasted on individuals that could be served in the community for no more and likely much less money than is being spent in institutions.
We repeatedly asked Medicaid why they wouldn't cover the wound vac. A spokesperson says the department can't comment on specific cases, citing privacy protections.
But they gave us this supply list. Medicaid will cover gauze, bandages, and wound fillers in the home. Still, medical equipment like the wound vac is missing. How do you make sense of that list?
I mean, there's really no sense to make of it other than they have these specific codes for specific things instead of looking at, you know, what's the service, what's really going on here, and how can we treat this individual in an appropriate way.
I'm lost in the shufflework or the paperwork.
We made nearly a dozen phone calls to try to get Kennison help and ultimately get him home with his dog. Disability Rights Ohio is looking into taking on Kennison's case, questioning the legality.
What's happening here is a symptom of a bigger problem in Ohio where there's significant concerns about whether they are in compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act.
Since Kennison's considered disabled, this rights group says he's being discriminated against since there's no other affordable option for coverage.
That's troubling.
It's very troubling.
Kennison says he doesn't want to be a slave to the system and wants out of this nursing home before he gets caught up in a bigger pile of paperwork.
I'm just one little dot in the system, but can you imagine you put a puddle together and add all that up? Oh my gosh.
A Medicaid system set up to use your money, then pass it off to nursing homes, leaving the care happening here rather than at home.
And some new information tonight. I spoke with Kennison on the phone, and he says he's now at home. He says he went against the doctor's advice, got rid of that wound vac, claiming 5 months in the nursing home was just too long on the taxpayer's dime, guys.
Putting himself at risk, though, I guess.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, he's healing pretty well. Okay. But still, he wanted to be at home this entire time.
Like his analogy about the puddle, and it adds up into a heck of a lot of a lake of money there. What's being done, at least as far as Medicaid's advice goes, did they tell you anything that he might have done or that they could advise in terms of his case?
Well, Medicaid really shifts the blame on the doctor, saying the doctor wanted him to recover, and the only way he could recover was in the nursing home. But in fact, the problem is, of course, that wound vac, he just can't afford to have it at home.
Exactly.
So they'd rather pay $200 a day for him to stay in a nursing home than $20 a day for him to have that wound vac at home.
Right, and Disability Rights Ohio is one of those groups that's fighting this, saying it's an inflexible system. We need to do more so we can make it possible for other methods of coverage at home.
So what happens from here?
Well, basically, you know, this disability rights group, other groups have to jump on board. I know the governor has wanted to do things, although they didn't want to comment on our story, but, you know, to try to fix this system, because right now, we're just throwing away cash.
Sure, and you're right, it has been making the governor crazy. All right, Brooks, thank you.
You're welcome.
City of Columbus is spending $3 million to get rid of lead paint in homes.
It's supposed to be a priority to remove the poisonous paint from homes of children with high levels of lead in their blood.
Tonight, ABC6 investigator Brooks DeRose questions whether the city is truly putting those children first. Brooks, what have you found?
Well, we reviewed dozens of applications from homeowners and found a pattern of disorganization. The health department tests for lead-poisoned children twice a month. It's actually more common than you would think. And while the program is supposed to help, well, tonight we're peeling back the problems.
Your home may look and feel like a safe haven, but if it was built before the late 1970s, it may be coded in a health risk.
Come on, honey. You're okay. Come on.
Bobby Peterson is a foster parent who lives in this old house in East Columbus. Tests show it's covered in lead paint. And then the news she wasn't ready to hear. One of her children tested positive for lead poison.
Well, I felt horrible. I mean, I wasn't sure where it happened, how it happened.
Lead is a
contaminant.
Kevin Stinson is a former case manager for the city's lead program. He says hundreds of applications came in, but the system and process was so disorganized, many homes we found, like this one, just slipped through the cracks.
Nope, not done yet.
City officials say Lead-Safe Columbus applications go through assessments, plus the bidding process, before contractors use your tax dollars to replace windows, doors, and cover the paint, all sources of lead dust.
Typical timeline is anywhere from 4 to 6 months.
I have no confidence in it.
Nearly 2 years after applying, Bobby Peterson's still waiting for peace of mind. She spent that time with the windows shut, doing some of the lead paint removal herself.
I reached the point of where I wasn't going to give up because as a taxpayer, I wanted to know too. Where is this going?
Records show her file had no activity, no changes or updates for nearly a year.
EBL children are our very first priority.
Peterson is not alone. ABC6 investigators found homes of children who also had high lead levels and were overlooked for no reason. In August, we visited 2904 Livingston Avenue, where records show a lead-poisoned child once lived. The application remained in the system for a year.
Once again, someone that moved out because nothing was being done.
Well, it was done in October, only after we requested the records. The city then removed the lead. 590 Carpenter, another family with a lead-poisoned child, moved out before the work ever began.
This house had no water pipes, had holes in the walls where people kicked in the walls to steal the copper out the house.
We checked, and the home hasn't had running water since July 2012. In November 2012, the city spent $10 grand getting rid of the lead paint. Even today, the home sits vacant.
But there are other cases where you have sick children. Shouldn't that take priority over the vacant home?
Understand that the sick children, every time, it is our policy every time that they will take priority. That doesn't keep us from doing other units at the same time.
That rings hollow to Bobby Peterson, who became increasingly frustrated with no progress at her home.
That was at the point of where I wrote an email both to him and to his superiors about my concern for the program and who is getting the money and where is it going to.
Would you agree that she was ignored?
Well, obviously, I've not seen the email trail.
The email dated May 21st, 2013 reads, "I've attempted to contact you every 2 months for a year and a half, only to get the same answer of, we're working on it."
We certainly have better processes and procedures today than we did even back in May. And so we will continue to improve on issues such as this.
But you would consider her case an urgent case?
Certainly. She had an EBL child, yes.
Enough is enough. It's been almost 2 years. If they don't want to accept me in the program, I will accept that. But I just want a yes or no.
The $3 million grant for Lead-Safe Columbus runs out next year. The city is unsure whether or not it will apply for another grant to continue the program.
So, Brooks, what needs to be done to make the program operate more efficiently, do you think?
Well, here's the thing. They have a process. They have a checklist of things in place. They just need to follow their own checklist. Yeah. If they would do that, I think they could be much more efficient. We're talking about 100 homes that they've already completed, but there's more than 100 others that still need to be done, and we're already more than 2.5 years into this grant cycle, so they have basically a half year, maybe a little more, to try to finish these homes. It's going to be tough.
Yeah, as you say, clearly some inefficiencies. They got to get it turned around pretty quickly.
That's right.
All right. Brooks,
okay.
Thanks.
You're welcome, Bob.
Good morning, come on in.
It's not your typical classroom, but Emily Dillon will tell you.
You really have to be dedicated, and it has to be something you want to do.
She's just one teacher volunteering this summer.
Oh, I think we can fix it.
Helping children who are disadvantaged or part of low-income families.
You know how to play Uno, Nicholas?
She's providing them a place to play, learn, and discover.
We support them, we want them to do the best that they can and everything, and we care about them.
The students build relationships. They're valued and treated as more than a number.
Can you count them with me?
But numbers is what the Ohio Department of Education sees in your student.
1, 2.
An identifier, no name, just digits.
3, 4.
I'd like to get rid of this law so the Department of Education knows the names of the kids.
State Auditor David Yost says we're wasting $500,000 a year spent on 2 data warehouses with identical information.
Let me show you what we're talking about. We found 2 systems to identify 1 student. This is Beth. Her teachers here know her by her name. This is also Beth, but the Department of Education only knows her as number 628-628.
It really is redundant. If you look up redundant in the dictionary, this would be it.
And you're paying for it. We found the education audit suggests the department take over the system and be allowed to access personal information. That's how it's done in 48 other states.
We might be only one of 2 states that do it, but it's actually the better way to do it.
Brian Rothenberg heads up a liberal think tank. He's concerned with privacy protections if the names are released to the department.
In the name of saving a few bucks, do we really want to be in a situation where teachers and their students are exposed to the games that people can play if the list is used in the wrong way?
ABC6 found state law limits what the department can find out about your child. But if that were to change, the auditor says we'd save more than $4 million over 10 years.
It's easy to think about it in round terms of $500,000 a year. That's, 10 teachers we could put into the field.
First of all, we don't know where the money would go that is saved. I mean, we hear that from politicians all the time. We're going to save money by doing this, and it doesn't seem like we necessarily always save the money in the right areas.
5, 6.
For those who get one-on-one with kids,
They're not a score, they're not a grade.
the focus is their best interest.
To me, I would much rather have a child that I feel like has strived for their best all year and knows that I care about them.
I'm investigator Brooks Jarose, ABC6 News.
This is not a funeral. This is a new phase in my life.
He may no longer be the Ohio State University president, but Gordon Gee is still being treated like a king.
It's just totally ridiculous. I don't see anybody in Central Ohio who would think, oh yeah, that's a good thing.
ABC6 requested public records and found the outgoing president is getting a spacious new office to the tune of $190,000.
What do you think about that?
We asked around campus about a major renovation plan for the first floor of the John Glenn School of Public Affairs.
I know that there was like a big budget cut recently, so that kind of, I don't know, it's a little sad.
We learned the plan calls for closing a corridor, creating 2 rooms both for Gee and his assistant. And we checked, and Gee's contract says he'll have a tenured position at Moritz School of Law, not the School of Public Affairs.
The former president is going to have a new office built in this building for $190,000.
Well, who's paying for it?
We wanted to get that answer, but OSU says it doesn't even know yet. Sources tell ABC6 the project was approved by the Board of Trustees.
This is a public institution. It sends a really bad message.
It doesn't sit well with Brian Rothenberg, who heads up liberal think tank Progress Ohio.
$190,000? Are you serious?
But Gordon Gee lovers,
and he wears a cute bow tie. I mean, really?
are okay with the cost of construction.
He's got in billions of dollars at the university.
Think of it like this. That price tag could pay for 1 year's tuition for 18 in-state students. Then there's this.
I mean, that's the price of a house.
In fact, this 2-story house in Hilliard lists for $190,000. Large kitchen, 2 bedrooms, loft upstairs, furnished lower level rec room. Don't miss this $190,000.
For Lorna White, OSU runs in the family.
My son loves it here. My husband graduated from here.
In her opinion, money's tight and tuition's high.
When you're giving money to the university, do you ever question where it's going?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, the money is astronomical.
Serious money moving quickly. We asked to see design plans, but they were not released to us.
Why can't he have an office that is already here? Maybe you need some updating, painting, new furniture.